Hi everybody. Today we are going to make cinnamon rolls loaded with diced apple, maple syrup, and walnuts. And what's great and so easy about these is that you start with frozen bread dough. Get it in the freezer department of your grocery store. Usually comes in a bag with probably 5 frozen 1-pound loaves of white bread dough. Take one of those out, put it in a Ziploc bag, put it in your refrigerator the night before, let it thaw, and then when you're ready to make them in the morning, take it out of the fridge, leave it in the bag, and let it sit at room temperature to rest for a little bit before you roll it out. If you don't let the bread dough rest a little bit before you roll it out, the problem you'll have is when you're rolling it, it won't stay in position. It'll keep springing back and you won't be able to roll it out. If that happens, just let it sit for a little bit, let it rest for a little while longer, and you'll see the difference when you're able to roll it out. So let's just get right to it. I've got my bread dough rolled out to 16 by 10 inches. And what I like to do is keep a designated ruler in my kitchen for things like this. Just put a ruler in your drawer and have that ready if you're like me and aren't very good at eyeballing things. So 16 by 10. And what we're going to start with is I've got a 1/4 cup of butter and a 1/4 cup of pure maple syrup that I've softened in the microwave. And let it cool down a little bit. You don't want it hot. And you're just going to put this all on here. And don't worry, because the brown sugar and the cinnamon and the apples are going to soak this up and it won't be so runny. So spread this out almost to the edges. Okay, now I'm going to mix 2 tablespoons of cinnamon with my brown sugar. I'm going to just mix that together by hand. It's easier. You can kind of crumble up some of the little chunks of brown sugar that way. And I'm just going to sprinkle this over the whole top. And next I'm going to put my chopped up walnuts. If you don't have one of these little nut grinders, you can just chop them by hand, but I really recommend getting one of these. They're great. And just be sure when you do that you get one that has the metal blades, not the plastic ones. They don't work very well. And this one's great because it has measurements on the side. So this is my 1/2 cup of chopped walnuts. And lastly, our apple. I wait until the end to do this so that it doesn't turn brown while I'm waiting. So really quickly, I like to just chop the top and the bottom off. Peel the apple. And then just use one of these slicer tools that's going to get it into 8 wedges. And then what I do to get the size that I want with each wedge, I cut it in thirds. Flip it on their sides, cut that in half, and then dice that. Okay, so I've got my 1 whole diced apple. I like to use Golden Delicious apples because they're soft already and they cook so nicely pretty quickly. So I'm just going to sprinkle this on the whole top. So now you just want to roll up your cinnamon rolls. Some people will roll it towards them. I like to roll away from me because I like to make cinnamon rolls that have a lot of swirls in them. So what I kind of do, so just start from one of the long sides. Start by just getting a first start with 1 roll. And then I like to kind of gently pick it up and stretch it each time I roll it because it'll just make it have that many more rolls. And you sort of, because the apples are sort of chunky, you have to kind of, make sure they're getting tucked under each time so you don't end up with a pile of apples at the end. So just roll this all up. And then when you get to the end like this with just this much left, what I do is just pick up the end, pull it up a little bit, and then seal it to the top. Just pinch the dough together. Now I'm going to make 8 out of this. You really can make up to 12, just depends on how big you want them. This looks like it's got a little bit rolled out. So I've got a 13 by 9 inch casserole pan that I've buttered with butter, just like we did with the French toast casserole. Just use a cube of butter, peel off the wrapper and just rub your whole pan with butter. Okay, so I'm gonna do 8, so I'm simply gonna just divide it in 8, starting with cutting it in half. And then half again. And then just put them in your pan, cut side down, spread them out so they have a little bit of room to rise. Sometimes I might do this in a springform pan and pack them in, and then it's really easy and a really pretty presentation when you just take off the side and have your whole plate of cinnamon rolls. All right, there's 8 with plenty of room to rise. Now I like to just push them down just a little bit. So now you just want to cover them with saran wrap and let them rise for about an hour until they're at least doubled. So if your kitchen is cold, sometimes what you can do is just turn on your oven to about 150, turn it off, and then put your cinnamon rolls in there and let them rise in there. Okay, so we'll be back in about an hour after they've risen, and I'll show you what they look like then. For the recipe, you can go to noboneslife.com. You can get the downloadable recipe. I'll also have a second version of these cinnamon rolls on that recipe using orange marmalade, which is really good. So I'll see you in about an hour. Okay, so the rolls have been rising for about an hour and 20 minutes, so they're ready to go into the oven. Remember to preheat your oven to 375 while they're rising. Remove the saran wrap, and I'm gonna put these in the oven for 20 minutes. And then I'm gonna come back and we're gonna make our maple glaze. Okay, for our glaze, we just need 1.5 cups of powdered sugar. To that, we are going to add 2 tablespoons of pure maple syrup, 2 tablespoons of milk, doesn't really matter what kind, 1%, this happens to be half and half, and 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. And you're just simply gonna whisk this together. So we'll just set this aside until our cinnamon rolls are done baking. Okay, so these have been baking for 20 minutes. They look perfect. And I'm just going to add a little bit of our maple glaze on top. And there you go. Super simple apple, walnut, and maple cinnamon roll that you could whip up anytime with just having that frozen dough in your freezer. So give it a try. I hope you like it. And remember to check out the recipe on the website, noboneslife.com, where I'll also have the orange marmalade version of the cinnamon roll. Thanks for watching. See you next time.